They rolled up like they owned the road. 3 guys in knockoff tactical vests, fake badges glinting, tow truck rumbling behind them, blocking my wife Lena right as she jogged back from her usual loop. "Ma'am, this eyesore violates every standard in the greater Willow Grove area," the leader barked, already hooking chains to our 1969 Camaro like it was public property. "Step aside or we'll cite you for obstruction." Lena didn't flinch. She just tilted her head, that calm half-smile I'd seen 1,000 times over coffee, and said, "Gentlemen, you're trespassing, impersonating officers, and about to commit felony theft on private land." They laughed until she moved. 3 seconds later all 3 were face down in the gravel, wrists zip-tied with their own cheap cuffs, and the leader was whimpering, "This isn't how HOA enforcement works." Yeah. Tell that to the real sheriff pulling up with lights blazing. Because the woman they tried to bully had spent years putting actual bad guys away for the FBI, and Vanessa Langford, the pastel-wearing dictator who started this whole circus, watched her perfect little kingdom implode in front of every neighbor she'd spent years terrorizing. But let's rewind, because no one wakes up expecting their HOA president to send armed clowns to their driveway. We'd moved to Willow Grove 6 months earlier for the same reason every tired couple does. Escape the city noise, find a patch of dirt where the only rules were the ones we made. Our 5 acres sat just outside the official boundary, technically free, practically surrounded. The Camaro was my pride and joy, the car I rebuilt with my dad before he passed. Faded racing stripes, loud exhaust, 0 HO-approved beige. Vanessa showed up on week 3 wearing a blazer the color of Pepto-Bismol and a smile sharp enough to slice bread. "Good morning, neighbors," she sang, clipboard already out like a weapon. "I'm Vanessa Langford, president of the Willow Grove Enclave HOA. We like to extend a hand to all adjacent properties. Keeps everything harmonious. You know?" I wiped grease off my hands. "Ryan Harper. Appreciate it, but we're outside your jurisdiction. County codes only." Her eyes flicked to the Camaro like it had personally insulted her ancestors. "Oh, we consider the entire visual corridor part of our aesthetic covenant. That vehicle really pops against our neutral palette, doesn't it?" The word vehicle came out like she'd smelled something dead. Lena stepped onto the porch, barefoot, coffee in hand, looking every bit the mild-mannered graphic designer she pretended to be. "We love the neighborhood, Vanessa. But we're not joining. Quiet life, no committees." Vanessa's laugh tinkled like wind chimes made of broken glass. "Of course, dear. We're all about choice until it affects property values. Have a lovely day." She left a glossy brochure in our mailbox anyway. On the cover, smiling families under identical American flags, caption "One community, one standard." The first letter arrived 3 days later, typed on heavy cream stock like a wedding invitation from hell. "The non-conforming unit parked in Plainview negatively impacts the cohesive streetscape. Please relocate or conceal within 14 days to maintain harmony. Unit." They called my Camaro a unit. I laughed so hard I almost choked on my beer. Lena just raised an eyebrow. "They're testing the water, Ryan. Don't splash back yet." I didn't. Instead I washed the car, waxed it till it glowed like a disco ball, and parked it dead center in the driveway facing the road. Next letter. "Multiple residents have expressed concern regarding your blatant disregard for shared values." Multiple residents? We hadn't met a soul except Vanessa. Lena folded the paper neatly. She's building a narrative. Classic move. Let her. By week 6 the white SUVs started appearing, always the same 3, idling just past our mailbox, drivers pretending to be on calls while staring straight at us. Buddy, our old mutt, would stand on the porch with his hackles up, growling low like he knew exactly what kind of predator was watching. I wanted to march down there and tell them where to shove their clipboards. Lena just drew the curtains a little earlier each evening, and started running her 5-mile loop at dawn instead of dusk. "Reducing variables," she called it, like she was solving a puzzle instead of living under surveillance. Then came the rose bush. It wasn't even on their side. 3 feet inside our line, a massive heirloom climber my grandmother planted the year I was born. One Tuesday morning the chainsaw scream ripped through the quiet. I ran out to find 3 orange-vested workers already halfway through the trunk, survey stakes planted like they owned the dirt. HOA beautification order. The foreman grunted without looking up. Invasive species. Talk to the board. Lena was already walking toward them, phone up, recording in 4K. No yelling. Just that same soft voice. Morning. I'm going to need your work order, boundary confirmation, and county permit. The foreman laughed right in her face. Lady, this is bigger than you. Step back before you get cited. Lena kept filming, his face, the saw, the stakes, the HOA truck parked illegally on our grass. The saw sputtered silent. The crew suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. As they packed up, Lena spoke loud enough for the phone mic. Footage and coordinates already sent to county planning and your general counsel. Expect a violation notice by lunch. I stood there stunned. I'd been ready to swing a shovel. She'd ended it with a camera and a smile. 3 days later, the county fined the HOA $18,000 for unauthorized tree removal on private land plus protected species violation. Vanessa's next letter wasn't polite anymore. It was handwritten, shaky. You two think you're above the rest of us. Enjoy your isolation. But isolation wasn't the plan. The real knife came at my job. I'm a project manager at a mid-size engineering firm. Nothing flashy. Just steady pay and decent health insurance. Monday morning, the entire break room went dead silent when I walked in. My boss called me into his office before I could even sit. Ryan, we received an anonymous complaint packet over the weekend. Harassment of contractors, creating a hostile neighborhood environment, threats of violence. He slid his laptop over. There was the edited video. Only the part where the crew was already cutting our rose bush. No request for paperwork, no refusal, just me looking furious on the porch in the background. The email claimed we were unstable outsiders undermining community cohesion. I felt the floor tilt. None of that happened. I know, he sighed. But HR wants you to sign this acknowledgement of conduct concerns. It's just paperwork. It wasn't. It was the first brick in the wall they were building around my career. Vanessa couldn't beat us on our land, so she came for my paycheck. That night Lena listened while I raged. When I finally ran out of breath, she said quietly, "This is where they always go next. Break the man, the family follows. Most people fold here." Her eyes had that distant look again. Like she was remembering something from a life I didn't fully know. We don't fold. The next weeks were a masterclass in slow psychological warfare. Grocery clerks suddenly forgot how to make eye contact. The guy at the feed store who used to slap me on the back now studied his shoes. Vanessa never showed her face. She didn't need to. The story she'd seeded spread like poison ivy. The Harpers were trouble, rude, dangerous, refusing to play nice. Property values were supposedly tanking because of our eyesore. Never mind that the Camaro was parked on our own dirt. Lena kept preparing in her quiet way. Extra batteries in the cameras, motion lights upgraded, a small pouch she started carrying on her runs. I asked once where she learned to think like a siege planner. She just kissed my forehead and said, "I pay attention." Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. Late afternoon, golden light, me oiling tools on the porch. Lena was on her run. The black Tahoe appeared like a shark. Tinted windows, no plates visible. Dust kicking up as it braked hard in front of our driveway. 3 men stepped out wearing matching polos with embroidered Willow Grove security patches that looked printed yesterday. One had a gun on his hip that definitely wasn't department issue. Lena came around the bend, ponytail swinging, earbuds in. They moved to block her path. "Private enforcement action," the leader announced. "We have authorization to remove the non-compliant vehicle. Cooperate and nobody gets hurt." I was already running, boots sliding on gravel. But Lena raised one hand without even looking back. "Stay." Then she spoke, voice carrying clear across the road. "My name is Lena Harper. You are on private property, armed, attempting to seize assets without court order. That's felony theft and impersonation of law enforcement." The youngest one smirked and reached for his weapon. What happened next took maybe 6 seconds. Lena stepped inside his reach, redirected his arm with a movement so smooth it looked like dancing, and suddenly he was eating gravel. The leader lunged. She spun, used his momentum to slam him into the third guy. The gun clattered free. Before any of them could process what hit them, Lena had zip ties out, Her own, not theirs, and all three were secured. She pulled a small leather holder from her pocket, flipped it open, and held it up so the dashcam on the Tahoe could see it clear as day. Retired Supervisory Special Agent Lena Harper, FBI. The silence that followed was so complete I heard a single leaf hit the ground. Vanessa had been standing 50 yards away the whole time, half hidden behind a neighbor's mailbox, watching her hired muscle do her dirty work. When the badge flashed, her face went the color of old milk. The porcelain smile she'd worn for months cracked straight down the middle. Real sheriff's deputies arrived minutes later. Someone had called the second the first punch flew. Body cams rolling, questions flying. The three clowns started babbling about HOA authorization and community service. The sheriff just stared at Vanessa like she'd grown a second head. "Evelyn, Vanessa, your cousin's gonna love this one," he muttered. By evening the neighborhood group chat was exploding. Someone had already uploaded the dashcam footage. 12 residents called an emergency meeting without her. By morning there was a petition circulating. Removal of President Langford for gross misconduct. Vanessa resigned before the vote. She didn't even try to defend herself, just packed up her clipboards and moved to Florida, where I hope the HOAs are meaner than she ever was. The Camaro still sits in the driveway, louder and prouder than ever. Neighbors wave now, awkward, sheepish waves, but waves. Some even stopped to apologize, admitting they were scared of being the next target. Peace looks the same on the outside, but inside it feels earned. So here's the question I keep turning over every morning while I drink coffee and watch the sun hit those racing stripes. Was Vanessa Langford just a concerned citizen trying to protect property values and harmony for the greater good? Or was she a small-time tyrant who finally met the one person she couldn't control? Who was really wrong here? The couple who wanted to live on their own land without permission slips, or the HOA queen who thought her rules trumped the law? Drop your verdict in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're dealing with your own HOA nightmare right now, stay quiet, stay smart, and remember, sometimes the quietest neighbor has the loudest batch. The fallout didn't stop at the petition. News vans showed up by Wednesday, parking along the road like it was a parade. The sheriff's public information officer stood at the entrance to Willow Grove and read the charges like he was reciting a grocery list. Impersonation of law enforcement, criminal trespass, attempted theft, conspiracy, and because one of those idiots actually drew on a federal agent, even a retired one, the menacing count carried real teeth. I watched from our porch, Lena beside me with Buddy at her feet, while Vanessa was escorted out of the clubhouse meeting in cuffs, not for the HOA stuff, but for the gun charge that couldn't be spun away. Her usual pastel armor had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her highlights. She didn't look at us. She couldn't. The woman who once lectured me about aesthetic cohesion now had her own mugshot circulating on every local Facebook group with the caption "HOA Karen's empire of fake badges finally falls." Black humor at its finest. Inside the house that night, Lena finally told me the parts she'd kept buried. Not everything, just enough. The behavioral threat analysis work, the years running undercover ops tracking domestic extremists who hid behind community protection rhetoric that sounded eerily like Vanessa's. "I left that life so I wouldn't have to be that person anymore," she said, voice soft in the kitchen light. "But some skills don't retire." I asked why she never told me. She just took my hand. "Because I wanted mornings like this one." "Coffee, the Camaro, you complaining about the exhaust." "Normal." I didn't want the past following us here. The past had followed anyway. Only this time it saved us. The neighborhood changed in small, almost invisible ways at first. The white SUVs disappeared. The group chat stopped with the passive-aggressive memes about certain people who refused to conform. Bob, the retired accountant who used to cross the street when he saw me, showed up on our porch with a six-pack and an actual apology. "We all knew she was out of line," he admitted, staring at his shoes. "But nobody wanted to be the one who spoke up first. Easier to let the machine roll over you." I could have been bitter. Instead, I handed him a beer and asked if he wanted to see the engine I was rebuilding in the garage. Turns out the guy knew more about carburetors than I expected. By the end of the month, the HOA itself was under investigation. Turns out Vanessa had been fining people for imaginary violations and pocketing portions into a community improvement fund that somehow only improved her own backyard. The county auditor called it creative accounting. The rest of us called it theft with extra steps. The Camaro became a kind of symbol. Kids on bikes would ride past slower just to look at it. One teenager even asked if I'd teach him how to wax it properly. I said yes on the condition he never used the word aesthetic unironically. But the best part, the part that still makes me laugh in the middle of the night, was the video. Someone had stitched together Vanessa's original harmony speech at the block party with the bodycam footage of her hired goons getting zip-tied. It went viral in the HOA horror communities online. Comments ranged from, "This is why I left my neighborhood," to POV, "You mess with the wrong quiet couple." One particularly savage commenter posted side-by-side photos, Vanessa's perfect lawn before and the dandelions taking over after she fled to Florida. Karma, it turns out, has excellent timing and zero respect for pastel blazers. Lena started running her loop again at the old time. Dusk, when the light turns everything gold. No more dawn escapes. No more watching every shadow. Buddy runs with her now, tongue out, tail wagging like nothing ever happened. I sit on the porch with my coffee and watch them disappear around the bend. That old Camaro gleaming beside me like a metallic middle finger to every clipboard that ever existed. Sometimes neighbors stop by just to chat. They ask about the car, about how we kept our cool, about whether Lena really was FBI. I tell them the truth, she was. And the only reason any of us are still standing here is because she chose to be something softer when she could have been something terrifying. The rose bush? We planted a new one, bigger, thornier. Right on the property line where everyone can see it. Lena hung a small brass plaque at the base that just reads Harmony. Vanessa would hate it. Which is exactly why it's my favorite thing on the whole 5 acres. Months later, the legal dust finally settled. The HOA dissolved under the weight of its own lawsuits. The 3 fake security guys took plea deals and are probably still explaining to their parole officers how they got their asses handed to them by a 5'4" graphic designer who used to chase terrorists for a living. Vanessa's name now appears in every HOA horror subreddit as a cautionary tale. Don't be a Langford. We kept the land, kept the quiet, kept each other. Some nights I still wake up thinking I hear that chainsaw or see those white SUVs idling. Then Lena rolls over, puts her hand on my chest, and the world rights itself. She doesn't talk about the old job much, but every once in a while she'll mention a detail. How fear is the cheapest weapon tyrants use. How silence is only weakness if you let it stay silent. I asked her once if she ever regretted stepping back into that version of herself. She thought about it for a long minute, watching the pines sway outside the window. No, she said finally. Because the alternative was letting them win. And some things are worth dusting off the old skills for. The Camaro still sits front and center. I added a new sticker to the bumper last month. Just 3 letters in white. FBI. Neighbors laugh when they see it. Some ask for pictures. One even asked if Lena would teach a self-defense class at the community center. She politely declined, but I saw the tiny smile she tried to hide. Willow Grove isn't perfect now. No neighborhood ever is. But the difference is nobody's afraid to speak up anymore. When the new board tried to pass a rule about approved mailbox colors, 3 people showed up at the meeting and shut it down before it even got to a vote. They learned. We all did. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's knowing you can handle it when it shows up wearing a cheap polo and a clipboard. So yeah, if you're watching this because your own HOA Karen is currently measuring your grass with a ruler or sending letters about your holiday lights, take this story as proof. The machine only works as long as everyone plays along. One person who refuses, really refuses, can make the whole thing seize up and die. And sometimes that person turns out to be the quiet one you least expect. Now tell me in the comments, was Vanessa right? Were we the problem for daring to live differently? Or was the real crime her belief that she could rewrite the law with a pastel smile and a stack of violation notices? Who was truly wrong here? I'm reading every answer. And if your HOA story is worse than this one, drop it below. We might need a sequel. Until then, keep your Camaro loud, your rose bush thorny, and your zip ties handy. You never know when the next clipboard army is coming.